Welcome to this episode of the Skiff Meetings podcast, the podcast for curious professionals embracing the future of business events. My name is Miguel Neves, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Skiff Meetings. In this episode titled Business Needs Before Meeting Design, I have the pleasure of speaking with Eric de Groot, managing partner and meeting designer at MindMeeting. We cover things like the 6 reasons to use meetings, which are different to the objectives of the meetings, why understanding people is so important to meeting design, the importance of combining different ways of thinking to become a better meeting designer, why meetings need more well-being and physical activity in them, and why boards need to be involved in meeting design. I hope you enjoyed listening to this conversation. I invite you to check out the other episodes of the podcast. You can find these on our website or by subscribing through your favorite podcast service.
Now for a word from our sponsors, PHL Life Sciences, a division of the Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau. Host your convention or trade show in Philadelphia, one of America's leading life sciences hubs. PHL Life Sciences, the first and only CVB division of its kind, will connect you to the professionals at the forefront of your industry and to a culture you can only find in Philadelphia. A city known for its rich history that's forging a bright future, Philadelphia challenges the expected and defies convention. A world of discovery is waiting. Visit phlife.com to learn more.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Eric de Groot today on the Event Manager podcast. Eric, welcome. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Miguel.
So, Eric, we've known each other for, I'm going to say about 12 years, something like that. But for people that don't know you, can you take us a little bit through your journey? How did you find this thing called the meetings or the events industry? And how did you develop, through the years?
Yeah. All right. Now, well, it's a long story, of course, but I'll cut it short. I did some. I studied medicine for about 6 weeks. So if you have a disease starting with an A or a B, I can help you, and that's going to be it. Then I found drama school really interesting, so I started studying drama, becoming a drama educator, and that turned into being an actor. And as an actor, I got invited to do openings at conferences, at openings of musea, etc. There was an event agency that hired me to do that.
Okay.
And so I got into what meetings are like, and I was totally surprised about how boring they were. Coming from the theater, on the rehearsal floor, anything is possible, and then you step into the floor of business meetings, and then suddenly nothing is possible. I mean, that was totally astonishing. I thought, these are bright people, they have money, they have goals, they are targeted people. Why do they do this? And that surprise, I'm still surprised up till today, why so little is possible on the meeting floor, why people don't just celebrate life and really meet and really build upon that. So then we discovered that in the meetings industry, the organizer was a designer at the same time, which is strange because in architecture, for instance, you have an architect and you have a construction company. But in the meetings industry by then, and I'm talking about 30 years ago, the organizer, the event agency, was doing the design as well. Mm-hmm. And we said, we don't want to do that. You need 2 types of brains for this. The organizer needs to be very organized. And the designer needs to have these fantasies and needs to think out of the box or without any box. Mm-hmm. So that brought us on the path of considering meeting design as a separate profession. And that's what I still do today.
And when did you make that leap to kind of, being that designer or assume that role?
Well, pretty quickly, because I'm getting bored really quickly by having to be too organized. Mm-hmm. So it just wasn't me. I needed someone doing that for me. that was pretty easy. So, and then finding someone who was doing that really well, then there's no question. And you don't even realize that it works like this in the beginning.
Yeah.
So that came pretty quickly. Yeah.
And so what do you do today?
Well, what we do is we get invited by those people in big organizations that somehow think MindMeeting needs to do something instead of it has to has an effect.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have that wish, they tell us if then the way it will develop needs to be special, but we don't know how to do that.
Okay.
And that's the point where they say we need someone who's totally focused and into how these mechanisms of getting people together, how they work, and how you can influence this. Really? And that is where it all starts.
And that's usually the like a leader, someone in a leadership role within a company or an association. Yeah. So not so much the event organizers or the agencies or people like that.
Well, it has developed, of course, over the years. Now, some agencies recognize that they have to have experts in that specific field. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it is just an assistant of the CEO who says, "Come on, I'm going to advise my CEO to to think a bit out of the box, a bit further, because I know that he's not satisfied with the last annual management meeting. Something needs to change."
Someone that recognizes that their skills are not there and they need somebody with other skills to do that.
Yeah. And in the end, you need to talk to the big guy or guy in male and female, of course.
Yeah.
So because they have to make the decisions, they have the wish, they can say yes or no, and that is, you have to have them on board.
Exactly. So you need that connection to the decision maker, whoever that is, or that may be.
Sure.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
And so you have a business partner, Mike van der Vijver, who you've also written books with. You have a company together, MindMeeting, right? So he does similar things. He also comes from an acting background, right? So there's a similarity there. Yeah.
Mike? No, not at all.
Not at all.
No, okay. Not at all. No. It's interesting because I know him from high school.
Okay.
So we met when I was 14. He was 14. He was a swimmer. He was doing really good at school. He started studying biology. I did different things. I started traveling. After medical school, I did some traveling. He developed as a conference interpreter after doing biology. And then we got interested in each other's professions. I mean, the translation of what people really want to say is fascinating. And in a way, it is a bit, there's a connection with meeting design, because you want to translate as well what a meeting owner wants to achieve and translate that into formats, into a program that makes sense. So, but that is a connection that I can see now. By then, we just wanted to have a company to celebrate our friendship. He was married. He lived in Italy. I lived in the Netherlands. We wanted to do something together, and that developed into MindMeeting.
Really interesting. So, and you work on a lot of projects together, or
yes. Well, by now he lives in Taipei.
Okay.
He and our sister company there, Orange Gibbon, is developing the market in Taiwan, and in a couple of other Asian countries. So I see him a lot online, and we don't do projects together anymore in that sense. Yeah,
you write books together.
That book was a great big project. I really enjoyed that.
Okay,
and we had this long session. Yeah,
so your company name in the Netherlands, De Wet van Thomas. What does that mean? I mean, I literally translated it just means that was Thomas, right, or something like that. But
Thomas's law, it means. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a guy in the last century, that's a sociologist that wrote about how groups work,
Okay.
And his discovery was it, and which is in the UK pretty special to realize, is that a group of blue collar workers and a group of professors, if you see what the mechanisms are that are steering what they do as a group, these mechanisms are the same.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, everybody thought in coming from the Middle Ages, we think that well-educated people, they do things a lot more elaborate than people that that are not educated. And he said, there's no difference. And this Mr. Thomas wrote a book about this, and I thought, thinking about the name, okay, this is interesting. My profession is about group dynamics as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I call it the Thomas's law, the wet van Thomas.
That's fascinating. So is it about the group dynamics in terms of how people interact? So it doesn't
Yes.
depend on the level of education, on the kind of the types of interaction and how people reach decisions, that kind of thing.
They use different vocabularies.
Yeah.
I've got this great thing. Now I remember. I did a. This is one of my. I'm proud about. I'm proud about what I'm about to tell you now here. That was about the subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
The subconscious. How can you use the subconscious in safety on the work floor? And we had all these CEOs from these big oil and gas companies in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought we have to do something that makes them really sort of astonished, flabbergasted. So what we did is we had this. There was a path they had to go from the parking lots to the meeting venue, and on that path we had there was this little sign saying, "Please turn off your telephone. Please turn off your telephone, because we in this venue, we like you to really connect and not go to your screen. This is, if you don't want to do this, is okay, but this is our proposal to you." That was a really nicely designed sign. Mm-hmm. And then there was a student checking how many people actually picked up their phone and put them on silent mode, because that was what the sign said. And we really had we had the data. And then after about 20 minutes, after 50 to 60 people passed, we had this little sign, and we wrote a couple of dirty words on it and a bit of graffiti. We somehow made it looking less, you understand, less nice.
Yeah.
And then sociology says, if this happens, then people get this subconscious sign. Rules don't apply here.
Yeah.
Right? So, and we kept on taking notes about how many people actually picked up their phone, turned it on silent mode. And there was a huge difference.
Okay. Yeah.
So now my opening in that conference, I moderated that conference as well. I said, well, I explained it. You are all these guys. You know how to deal with a request, official request, right? Because you're well educated, which is totally different from the people that you work for, your employees. You have to teach them how to do this. You don't. And then I showed this sign, and I exactly said what happened. I said, now I don't know the percentage, but at first about 60% of the people picked up their phone and turned it off. And then after this, it changed into 26%.
Yeah.
And they were really silent, like, okay, all right. So we, in a way, we are the same. We are reacting the same on such a simple sign.
Yeah.
You can find an experiment like this in many books on mass psychology and
yeah. I think I've read one which is the broken windows experiment, I believe, which is suggesting that in neighborhoods that are less, when buildings are more broken and there's broken windows in certain neighborhoods, those neighborhoods experience much more burglary and much more crime than
more crime.
If people, the same level of financial income, etc. If people take care of the houses and make them look nice, then they have much less crime.
It's exactly the same mechanism, Miguel. Exactly, and the tipping point is writing about this in New York when they started to clean up the subways, the tubes. Yeah. Then the rates of criminal behavior dropped dramatically. It's the same. It's the same. So there's no. I proved in an instant there in that design that there's no difference between CEOs, well-educated academic CEOs, and people on the work floor.
Really
so that was interesting because that particular moment gave me 4 years of work in the oil and gas industry. Really, it did. It did. We ended up sending people to oil and gas working places to keep things safe and doing experiments, etc., etc. A lot of
really
work came out of this.
Yeah, fascinating how specific moments cause such an impression that I think that in whoever was hiring's mind, you became that person that could do something, or your company became the company that could solve a certain issue, right? So, so many questions already just from that introduction, but thank you for sharing that. One thing that I have is, how do you train, right? Because this is, I know of some courses, but I also know your career is very multifaceted. So how do you become a meeting designer, or how did you become a meeting designer? Because there isn't really one curricula, right? That it isn't a sort of certified. You have to have your diploma as a lawyer or something like that, where you have to practice. So you become all, and it's so multifaceted. How did you go about it?
Yeah, that's a good. If I would know the answer, then I would have started an academy. Well, it's difficult, I know, because at the same time, we don't have to overcomplicate it, because it is a profession, and the same question applies to people that do industrial design. How do you do this? I mean, it's a lot about combining different ways of thinking. So I told you I studied medicine, so I have this science background in a way. Only if it was 6 weeks, that proves that my mind is in a way scientific. I want to understand things, and at the same time I've been an actor, so I want to let go of my fantasy. If you're able to combine these things in many professions, that is key. I think you have to. The training is quite often about the work itself. The work itself trains you, and what you do in the work is you try to understand, you try to analyze, and at the same time you let go, and you listen to the voices and the images that pop up, and try to translate that into actual programs. Now that is a more abstract answer to your question, I think, but that is. I've heard this great. On one of the meetings that I've done, there was a conference, there was a Dutch minister, and he said the future of professionalism is that people need to do at least 2 studies at the same time, 2 very different studies. And he gave a couple of examples: people that do rocket science and are ballet dancers at the same time. This guy, the guitarist of Queen,
Brian May, yeah.
Yes, he's a scientist as well.
Yeah,
he's doing 3D imaging in astronomy, and he wrote a book about this. And what a guitarist he is! I mean, this is an example of a guy who developed 2 streams of consciousness at the same time.
Yeah, fascinating. That kind of idea that you need to have, I guess, study different areas, but also different types of thinking that go into different activities, right? That's really, really important.
Well, we all know medical doctors that you encountered sometime, and then you think, gosh, guy, you need you're just a doctor. You need to be more. You need to be a human, right? And how do you become a human? By doing different things. Go gardening, go whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that's a bit complicated answer to your question, but
I think it illustrates it very well in the sense that there isn't a single path, and maybe that's part of the magic of the role, but also the challenge of the role.
Yeah, it is.
And sometimes I feel like it's a little bit like an artist. If you want an artist to build a statue or to do some sort of installation for a building or a museum, you probably don't know what the final outcome is going to be, right? The artist does something, and then sometimes people love it, sometimes people hate it. But do you think that your work is similar to sort of an artist?
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it is applied. It is applied art.
Okay.
And that is what people, if they think about it, that is exactly what they ask you. Now come up with something that we can't think of.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. And the problem is very specific. This is what we want to achieve.
Yeah.
And analyzing the demands and the wishes of the client is a big part of the work. Yeah. You need to do diagnostics here.
You need to get to the source of the problem,
core
right?
of, okay, guys, this is what you want. All right. And then quite often in that process of diagnosing, the first images pop up already. Okay, right. This is what you say. Now we could do this. We could do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you sort of present your solution, do you often have people expect a conference agenda or something like that? Can you kind of write it down on a piece of paper, and what you're presenting is something very different to what they're expecting? Does that happen, and how do you manage that kind of contrast in expectations?
Well, the management of the expectation happens in the diagnostic phase.
Okay.
You show them that you follow a methodology of analytics, asking specific questions. And the good thing is, if you do that and you make that a pretty intense session, then they start thinking differently themselves already. Mm-hmm. And that's, for instance, an exercise that we do is called the experience concept, and we ask them to give us verbs. What do you want the participants to actually do? Come up with any verb that pops up in your head. That's what I say to the CEO. And they start saying, okay, we want them to talk, we want them to do this. And then a long list comes up, is created. And then from then I say, we're going to bring it back to 6 verbs that are really crucial. And then from those 6 verbs, we create an image together that is somehow embracing everything, something that we all know. Like a family, is it a family dinner that you actually want, that you want to do? Is it a funeral? Is it? And then you get all these strange answers, really, really wonderful answers. I remember a CEO of an association that we did this exercise with, and he said, in the end, "Oh my goodness, I want my conference to be that specific week that I did as a Boy Scout." And that was a specific boy. It's in scouting. I remember that he told us about going to Norway. The 2 of them, so a Boy Scout, a bit older, like 16 years old. That's what they do. They go to Norway and they have to keep alive for a week on their own. He said, in fact, I want my conference to have exactly that atmosphere. Okay. And that was a great thing for him to discover.
Wow.
So now that happens sometimes it doesn't happen, of course. And then the thing you have to do is you have to use the same words in explaining your design, the words that they used, and focus all the time on, this is what we're going to to achieve this. So it's not like we've learned not to be like an advertisement company that will present a concept, saying, "Oh, we're gonna present you the concept, and the concept is wood, and anything that we're gonna do in the ads is connected to wood because that's so beautiful." No, that's not good enough. It's not about some sort of concept that only exists in my head as a designer. I have to find the concept that exists in their head, but they don't know it yet. And then show all the time why all the different steps in the design will lead to the result that they want. And then they go then they follow it.
That's fascinating. It does sound like you throw away the box right from the first phase when you're inquiring, right? So you kind of make sure that the box is completely out of the window, and then you kind of build together.
Yeah. You can do these little experiments, saying, "Okay, I'm going to say a few things, and then just react." Mm-hmm. And I need to know what you think is really strange and what you think is really interesting. So how about giving all our attendees a black hat with a little speaker in it? What do you think about this? Is that possible? Yes or no? If I come up with an idea like this, are you going to say you're crazy, or are you going to say, "Well, explain me, why should we do this?" And I say, it's whatever your answer is, it's okay. And then they say, "Well, a black hat with a little speaker in it. Well, if you really have a good reason to do that, then we want to hear it." And then I know, okay, that's possible. Mm-hmm. There are possibilities in that direction.
That's interesting. And are you sort of testing to see if there's budget, if there's willingness, if there's openness? Is that what you're doing there?
Yeah, I want to discover how what their borders are in their heads, in mm-hmm. what they find, what is normal, what is just outside of the normal but still interesting, and what is really not done.
Yeah.
And I learned that by mistakes. Yeah. We had these advocates, and there was that many years ago, and we sat to them. We want to go to a swimming pool with all of you, because guys, if you want to work together, you need to bond in a really different way. So we're going to go to a swimming pool. We're going to give you swimming lessons all together. Mm-hmm. Boys, girls, males, females.
And this was a group of lawyers?
Lawyers, yeah. Very prestigious lawyer firm.
Yeah.
And then we say we're gonna let you sleep overnight in a big hall, and we build all these different beds, and every bed's gonna have a light. Mm-hmm. And then we give you nice books, and you all can read together. And then in the morning, there's going to be breakfast. And then they said, "No way." And then I found that somehow really frustrating, because we thought it was a really good idea. But later I understood, my goodness, this was ridiculous. We should have diagnosed it a lot better.
Okay.
So.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's always good to learn also from failures and kind of understand what was wrong and how you kind of can improve on that.
Are you ready to celebrate your successes in the world of meetings and events? The Skift Meetings Awards are back for 2024, recognizing the most innovative business events companies across 15 categories, and we want you to be a part of it. Winners will feature on Skift Meetings, sending a clear signal to events professionals around the world that these are partners they can rely on. The final deadline for submissions is June 11th. We encourage you to start your submission today to secure the best entry rates. For more information and to start your submission, head to live.skift.com.
So let's talk a little bit about the book. You've written a book with your longtime business partner, Mike van der Vijver. Martin Cirk was also involved. He's been on the podcast, so we've talked with him as well.
Oh, good. Yep.
Meetings by default or by design. And I guess the first thing that strikes me is you wrote another book before, The Into the Heart of Meetings, which is much more of a kind of prose book. It's much more kind of long form. And this book has gone for very much a practical approach of I think you say in it, don't read the book from start to finish. Figure out which bits you want to learn about and jump in. That strikes me as a very different approach. Could you tell me a little bit about the process of getting here? Do they just complement each other, or do you feel like?
That's the right word. Into the Art of Meetings is really meant to inspire people on the path of design thinking. And we thought there's so many things in life that get designed. Meetings are not. So let us explain why meetings should be designed and how that works. Mm-hmm. And that was Into the Heart of Meetings. And it inspired loads of people to start in terms of designing meetings. But then we discovered that you can't expect anyone to be a designer. Especially not meeting owners. So let's make it very practical for them. If you're responsible for a meeting or a series of meetings and you have this feeling of a certain aspect of this needs to be improved, then you have to go to some resource saying, okay, what can I do about this? And that's the book. Now, it's 40 different topics that we can imagine a meeting owner thinks, wow, my networking, I feel it could be better somehow. Or how I produce and how we create this meeting as a team. Something's going not well enough. Or the end, we're always struggling with how to end a meeting. What do you need to do there?
Yeah.
So these are the 40 different things. And that's why you have to be fueled by a wish of improvement. And then you go to that chapter, and then you have to start doing things because, well, that's the story of meeting design. Meetings need to change things. Otherwise, it's going to be entertainment. Now, the book is not entertainment. It is activating people. So do something.
Are the books for the same audience?
No. Okay. I think that Into the Heart of Meetings is more interesting for people that have maybe an academic approach or a design approach. People that do design in different fields and think, oh, meeting design, what is that? No, let's read about this. And we hope that the meetings by default or by design will find its way into the libraries of boardrooms, board members that say, okay, we spend so much money on meetings, and somehow there are different things and different reasons why they just don't deliver. Let's read the book. Let's pick that chapter there. And then start doing it. Yeah.
Because I was kind of thinking that Into the Heart of Meetings was more the boardroom book. And Meetings by Default or by Design was more the planner manual in a sense. And that maybe the boardroom could read Into the Heart of Meetings and go, actually, we need to. And then the planner could pick this up and kind of take some ideas. Maybe I'm getting that completely wrong, but this feels like a much more practical approach, where a planner that, yes, is more focused on logistics, but as you said, not every meeting has a designer involved, but at least if you inspire planners to do better networking, to think about stage presence better, to do endings better, etc., then maybe you're chipping away at better design, even if you're not solving the whole issue. Would that be fair?
Yeah, it could work like this. However, each chapter has a piece of advice which is called Do Now, something that you really can do even if the meeting is 2 or 3 or 4 weeks away. And there is the next level advice. And the next level advice always demands a decision on a high level. Yeah. So that is exactly something that a board member, really a meeting owner, should read and say, okay, I'm going to reorganize this part of our meeting and make it more improve it that's not in a way not a practical thing, but there's a decision that needs to be taken first, and after that decision they can go to the next level. So that, especially that part, is board level, I think.
Yeah, I think interesting. Yeah, I think at the board level, I think also there needs to be some sense of practicality, and I think maybe you can also inspire different parts of the board. Maybe the board level thinks they know how to do meetings, but maybe they need a better way to end meetings, as you suggested.
Yeah,
that could be a way to start thinking about meeting design, and then kind of working your way back in many ways.
It's interesting, Miguel, because we see the sales developing on the Amazon website, and sometimes people order both books together. And Into the Heart of Meetings really describes meetings as a very specific form of communication, and quite often on board level people don't realize this. They say we have this whole design department internally for anything that has been printed or published online, and they have a whole crew for this. And for meetings they only have an event department that do all the logistics, but there's no designer involved there. And after reading the book, they're gonna, Into the Heart of Meetings, they're gonna understand, all right, meetings are different. You have to think different about meetings, and then afterwards they could go to meetings by default or by design. Think, okay, now I understand that it's different. Now, what do I have to do then?
Interesting. So there's a very conscious kind of journey that you're hoping that people.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
One of the things that the kind of overarching theme of the book is this idea that meetings have to happen for a reason. And you have 6 specific reasons, or 6 specific sort of I think ideas that have to be there to kind of build a meeting around. Could you maybe just go into the 6, or at least kind of explain why 6, and sort of what happens if something is outside of this? Do you kind of try to push things in, or do you exclude things? How does that work?
No. Now, what we've worked on this concept is because again, meetings are a specific form of communication. So why should you use it? There's a reason to use a meeting, and we identified 6 different reasons to deliberately focus on having a meeting executed in terms of communication. For instance, giving an overview of information a meeting is not specifically suitable for giving an overview of information. A book is a lot better. A journal is a lot better. A documentary is a lot better. You don't use a meeting for this. That's not a reason to have a meeting. Now, there are 6 that are specific. They have a specific bearing on why you should have a meeting. The first is networking. Networking doesn't work reading a book or making a phone call. A phone call is okay, but it is just one-on-one. So a television broadcast as a form of communication doesn't give you any networking. Even online meetings are not too good for networking. That's what we discovered. But face-to-face meetings, that is why you do. That is a way networking is stimulated. So that's a reason to do it. It's not the objective. An objective is a different set of standards. You have to talk. Okay, if you talk about an objective, then you say what kind of networking do we want, and how do we quantify this? So now we talk about the 6 reasons to choose for a meeting as a form of communication. Networking is one. Motivation is one. Motivation works perfectly well face to face. It works pretty well online, but you can get motivated by reading a journal, but motivation works a lot better if you're under the same roof with a large group of people. So learning is one. If you want people to learn something, doing that in a meeting will stimulate it beyond doing it on your own or from a book. You need to have other learners around you. That works really good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, decision making, that's a special one. That's also a reason. Sometimes just people get together, have a meeting to take decisions. And it works good because the exchange of arguments, you need to be in the same room. Even neuropsychologists are saying that smells and hormones play a role in this communication. You have to be close to people to smell what their intentions are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why a meeting is good for it. Now, alignment is another one. Alignment in terms of sharing the same goals, sharing the same direction, thinking the same about certain concepts. You have to be in the same room. And last but not least, there's also a reason coming from a feeling of having to have a ritual. Sometimes a meeting is just a ritual. Just because we are humans, we celebrate New Year and then we come together. Why do we do this? Just because we're human. There's no objective there. There's no. That's a reason. You know, these sparrows, these great video images of all these sparrows flying and they form all these shapes in the air. Why do they do this? Do they have an objective here? No, they just do that because they're sparrows. Now sometimes we have meetings because we are humans, and that's perfectly fine. Now we use these 6 reasons to talk to the CEO, to the commissioning party, to say, okay, what's going on? Do you want a ritual or do you want people to learn? What's your reason to have this meeting? If you don't have a reason, then go print a journal or make a video or a film or something else.
Yeah. And should the meetings have more than one reason, or do you like to kind of identify the one reason?
No, it's almost always multiple reasons. So we ask them, and that's an exercise that we do, divide 100 points over these 6 reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's astonishing what kind of conversations that question leads to.
That's a whole meeting in itself, right?
Oh, yeah. Then the CEO said, oh, obviously we're having our annual management meeting to network. So I give it 80 points. And then there's a silence in the group. And then he said, our learning is not too important. I give it 10 points and then 10 points to alignment. And then I say, okay, thank you. Now, is there anyone in the group who wants to comment on this? And then the CFO, whatever, in the group says, my goodness, you think this is only for networking? I have a totally different idea about this. This is about learning. We want our management meeting to be a strong learning experience for all our management. They need to learn how to do things a lot better. That's why. And then this beautiful conversation bursts into flames here. And then they exchange their arguments. And in the end, they say, okay, now we agree. It is indeed about alignment. That is actually what we want. Now you can understand how important that conversation is. If you don't have this, then you come up with a design or an idea, and you say, we're going to do this and this. And then people feel, well, this is not what I want. I mean, I want blah, blah, blah. So that's why it's so important to have a really good start and really in-depth start.
Fascinating. Yeah, I think the reasons are always good to refer back to. Fascinating. Eric, thank you so much for taking us through this. I want to ask you one last thing that kind of adds up to this, or kind of maybe puts it in perspective, which is really about the future. I know that you have a lot of very strong ideas of what meetings should look like, and obviously meetings are very different depending on size, scope, etc. But if you had your way, if you could change the way a standard meeting, you choose size and scope, is designed and is put together and is executed, What would that look like in the future? Let's say 5-10 years from now. And in particular, I'd like to, if you could highlight the things that would be different.
Cool. That's a big question, Miguel.
Well, I mean, you don't have to have a full picture, but if you have some ideas of what, and I guess what I'm really asking is, what would you like to see change in meetings in general?
Well, that's for the first question. I'm gonna need a day.
You're gonna need a whole session about that one question.
Well, in a way, what I could say is read the book, and the book consists of 40 different things that we think could really improve. So that's an elaborate answer here. Your second, what should be changed? Is there a specific thing that needs to be changed? Yes. What I feel is that it sounds a bit obvious, but there need to be more health in meetings. Just more health. Just the other day, I was in the south of Germany for a meeting. They gave me a call 3 weeks before it was executed, and they say we have 45 minutes in the end to activate people. And I came there and I did a proposal, and we did that. And then I observed that whole meeting, and these guys, 300 management people from a production company, high-level people, big worldwide company, they had them sit on chairs for hours and hours. And then only the last 45 minutes, they were able to walk around and do things. I mean, that's not healthy. It's not healthy personally. It's not healthy for the organization. It's not healthy in terms of business goals. It's not healthy in terms of harvesting everything that these people have in their minds. And it was only healthy for the board members who, after COVID, had gathered hours and hours of messages that they just want to spit over their management. And they feel relieved. But these 300 managers, they felt devastated. I mean, so health is a big thing.
So health in the sense of well-being and taking care of the kind of, I guess, the well-being of the attendees and the participants, right?
Yeah, and not in terms of pampering, but in terms of activating them. Give them things to do. Give them a voice. Give them a task. Give them very compact input and say, okay, this is the situation we're in. Now go and find solutions. Play it out. Sketch it. Do whatever you want. And that's the modern meeting, I think. I'm not very good in predicting the future. I think that's nonsense in a way. You can't predict because black swans will be there every now and then, and that will devastate any prediction that you have. I mean, COVID and the online explosion, no one predicted this. But what you can say is, what are the elements right now, the big elements that are fighting each other right now? And we are all responsible for the outcome of this fight, knowing that unpredictable things will happen. And that is how I'm looking at the future. Now, what I see is there's a strong need now, to be more active. And we know that online is doing a lot of things. You can share information online, pretty good. So if you put people under the same roof, what are you going to do then? Share information again? Nonsense. So you need to find new ways of activating people, making them really happy, and making them resourceful and valuable for the organization and for themselves as well.
Yeah, truly participate rather than attend, right? Or just kind of absorb.
We found that my motto is from an audience to a contribuence. Audience, we know, an audience is the word that refers to the Latin of auditore, listening. And there's no, in English, there's no, in Dutch either, there's no word for a group of people that will contribute.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of years ago, I came up with the notion of contribuence.
Okay.
That's a contribuence. Now, turning people into contribuents, that's the trick. That's we need to learn this.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you're writing about it and you're doing it actively. So happy to hear about it. Eric, would love to get your recommendation for somebody else that we should have on the podcast as a guest.
Yeah.
Because we like to have our guests suggest other guests and kind of complete the circle or expand our bubble to reach more people.
Yeah, I've got two recommendations. One is pretty abstract. The second one, you might find a solution for this. we are banking at a bank that is trying to do acceptable banking. Let's call it that way. And if you're gonna go there for a meeting about your assets, then you go into a meeting room, and one of the chairs is always empty because nature is there. Nature sits at that chair. And just by having that chair in the room, you feel that nature and the future of nature is in that room. And I think that's a good thing. That's smart. That is smart. So my first guest would be invite nature. I don't know how. I don't know how you could do that, but have a chat with nature.
Okay.
And the second one is probably more practical. Try to find a meeting participant. So not someone, not a supplier, not a meetings industry person, not an agency, not etc. Not me, not you, but someone who's a regular visitor of big international meetings, and just talk to these people. Maybe you have to invite 2 or 3 of them, or I don't know. It's not that practical either, Miguel. But I think it would be worth really talking to them. We did a pharmaceutical conference for a big pharmaceutical once, and we said we want to talk to your doctors, your participants first before coming up with the design. That was really difficult, because you have all these regulations. So we proposed, during the conference, let's talk to doctors and just interview them about what they think about this conference. And that was a regular medical conference. And our client said, no, that's impossible. These doctors are all assholes and they don't want to talk to you, and etc. And they said, well, we said, can't we try? Allow us to just have a couple of chats. And they said, okay, do that. And then we did it. I hired someone, and we had over 60 chats, and only one doctor was an actual asshole. All others were really nice people. And they were really willing to share their thoughts. And there was one over-compelling desire. And they said, we don't want to have all these research outcomes presented anymore. We want to talk to each other. That is our wish. Now, the motto here is if you talk to participants really in depth, then you're going to discover what meetings need to be. So I would recommend for you, Miguel, to find one of these doctors or whatever, someone who's capable of sharing what he's looking for in the meeting. I don't know.
I like it. I think it'll be a kind of a group of professionals that are not linked to the meetings industry. I think that's the secret, right? And then that attend meetings. I mean, I recall seeing this really funny thread on Twitter. I don't know if you came across this, which was initially during the COVID pandemic. Somebody said, "Oh, I'm my wife, I think, or my husband maybe, is doing a virtual conference online. So I'm going to walk into the room and turn on the lights and off and open the window and make the room really cold and then make the room really hot. And I'm going to serve them really bad food just to kind of emulate what a real conference is like." And then people started jumping in with kind of suggestions, and this became this huge thread of kind of like horrible things that really happen at conferences that you sort of we just take for granted are just there. And, of course, some of them were very kind of satire and kind of, kind of ridiculing the whole situation. But I thought it was fascinating because it's like this, we assume that we put people in convention centers and they have a great time when they go to this conference. But people notice that a lot of stuff is really crappy and it's not great to be in those situations. And when you start talking about them, they realize, okay, the vision or the image they have of conferences and events, yes, it's good in many ways, but it also has these things that really annoy people. And so it was really interesting to get that kind of perspective. So maybe we'll find whoever wrote that and invite them on the podcast and have a sort of participant.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That would be an entrance. Yeah.
Brilliant, Eric. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and good luck with the book. Miguel. Hopefully you sell a lot, and hopefully we'll see you soon again.
Hey, Miguel, thanks. It was a joy. Bye-bye.